Welcome to episode 4 of Kicking It in the Second Half. Today we're going to discuss the Eastern Conference, which teams are kicking it in the second half and which teams are getting kicked out of the second half. I'm D. This is Groot. I'm here with Hugh.
What's up, guys?
And tonight we have a special guest. We know him as B. He is professionally known as Your Bud 36. Follow him on Twitch. Give a shout out.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, yeah, we're glad to have you here. One of our friends that we get to talk to often about basketball, and hey, I'm happy to get you on the show.
I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk about some basketball. Haven't had the chance to really get it out there, and I'm excited to be a part of kicking it in the second half. And happy to be with you and Hugh, and especially Groot.
Oh yeah, thank you for shouting out Groot over there. Hugh, like I said, we're going to talk about the Eastern Conference tonight and follow that up with tomorrow's podcast about the Western Conference. But first, let's just run down the basics. Hugh, can you give us the current standings of the Eastern Conference as they stand today?
I can do that. So first you got the 76ers, followed by the Nets, then the Bucks. Then you at 4 you have the Celtics, followed by the Knicks, the Heat, the Hornets, and the Raptors to round out the top 8. At 9 you have the Chicago Bulls, followed by the Indiana Pacers and Atlanta Hawks. At 12 you have the Washington Wizards, Cavs, Magic, and last and probably least as well would be the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I believe Detroit is sitting at only 10 wins so far with 26 losses. So a tanking team right there, in my opinion. But yeah, just throwing out, let's just start with the random team. Y'all have heard about the news with the Hawks?
Yeah, I heard that they had decided to part with their coach. Honestly, probably the best move they can do. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the season if they even go a different direction with GM to just kind of start over and get a fresh start. They do have some talent down there, and they probably should start building before that talent either leaves or goes past its prime.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there because I think they are kind of at a crossroads. It looks like, there's definitely potential there. I thought maybe they'll already be in the playoff race as far as being in the top 8 of the Eastern Conference so far, but obviously that's not the case. And kind of one thing about them that kind of bothered me earlier in the season was the role of John Collins. I think he's starting to come along a little bit more now, but it's almost like at times it looks like the Hawks want him there. And then at times like, okay, maybe he's somebody potentially like they want to try to move on away from as far as getting something else that better fits their system. Hugh, would you have anything you like to add about the Hawks? I know you're a big fan of somebody in particular that plays on their team.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Atlanta, I definitely think their record is disappointing. I think they're like what B your bud touched on, they have a lot of talent down in Atlanta. With Trae Young, obviously one of the most, prolific young point guards in the league. Yeah, John Collins, you touched on him. He started out kind of slow, but he's getting a little better. Deandre Hunter, shout out UVA, but Deandre Hunter, he was having, I know it's only a sophomore year, but he was having an amazing year before his injury. So hopefully he comes back and puts those numbers back up. And then another guy, Clint Capella, I knew at least a couple weeks ago he was leading the league in rebounds per game. So I'm assuming it's still like that, but he's been a walking double-double this year. So they have a lot of talent. I just hopefully their new coach can help them at least try to put things together. Maybe get, push up there, maybe the eighth seed by the end of things. You never know how it'll turn out. But yeah, it's just disappointing so far.
Yeah, and they're one of the teams, getting into our next segment of, teams that are on the border that maybe need to make moves. But yeah, not having Hunter for the moment is definitely a big blow as far as the way he's been progressing this season. Definitely going to be interesting to see him come back and hopefully give them the push. But if the NBA keeps with their format of the play-in tournament style at the end of the season for the playoffs, like they did last year for the bubble, I mean, Atlanta definitely has a shot, even if they're like, maybe ranked number 9th or 10th. Which another team on the border currently I want to ask y'all about are the Bulls. What are the Bulls right now? And what I mean by what are the Bulls? Are they, in your opinion, a contending team for the playoffs? Because they're right there, I think, in the 9th seed. Or are they a team that needs to look at potentially starting over, not completely from scratch, but using the assets they have to get something for the future, i.e. Zach LaVine? He was an all-star this year for the first time, a tremendous talent. But where do y'all see the Bulls going for the rest of this season and possibly into next season?
You want to take that, B?
So I'm kind of torn on how I feel about this Bulls roster. They have a lot of young guys, but a lot of unproven commodities. I mean, they have Markkanen, they have LaVine, obviously both very good. They also have Kobe White, who plays, well on and off, but he's not consistently producing. My big thing is that I don't see who you go to. I don't think LaVine is a long-term, like, number one guy. He's been consistently good, but I don't know that when the game's on the line, that's the guy you go to. They either need to decide to move some of their young talent to bring a guy in, which is unlikely, I would think, the kind of caliber player they need. So honestly, I think they need to try and move LaVine and get some picks and try and start something over. So I just don't see how this roster is anything but mediocrity at this point.
Yeah, you definitely touched on some key things there. Kobe White, yeah, he's not being a consistent performer so far this year, but a guy who has big potential. And in that starting role, he should be thriving a lot more than what he has been on a nightly basis. But yeah, Zach LaVine's definitely a great talent that somebody else could probably better utilize him. And yeah, he doesn't have to be a number one option, even though the Bulls take him as such. I mean, they have other players that they could definitely develop into that going down the road if Markkanen could stay healthy, or just Kobe White himself. And then you have Wendell Carter Jr., who can back either one of those guys up if they were to keep the rest of the clan intact. But Hugh, do you have anybody, it could be the Bulls or anybody else that you think in the Eastern Conference that should be performing better?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple teams that comes to mind when I think of teams that should be performing better than the record shows right now. I think Washington is one, with Bradley Beal, the leading scorer in the league this year. You got Russell Westbrook. You would just kind of assume that maybe not playoffs, but at least higher than where they are currently. I know it was a big deal with Thomas Bryant going down. He was having a great year, so that's just one team. Me personally, I feel like Toronto. Like, I just kind of envision them, being a little better than they are. With Siakam and Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry, those guys. They've proven. I know they had Kawhi, but they all won a championship. So I just kind of expect better things from them. But probably the team, probably most shocked that they're not doing better. I know right now they're 4th ranking wise, but the Boston Celtics. Kemba, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. 2 of those guys were all-stars this year. I know they're 4th, but 19 and 17. I know Tatum missed those games with COVID and all, but to me personally, I just feel like they should be better than that. I just feel like they have players. I don't know if they're just one piece away. I know they're trying to. I've seen a lot of talk about them maybe getting a trade done for the deadline, something to help them out. But yeah, with just those guys, I would just personally expect them to have a better record than 19 and 17 right now.
Yeah, one of their targets for the trade deadline, I was hearing the rumors or seeing the rumors, potentially Andre Drummond, which, could be a huge upgrade for them down low, with their rotation of bigs, Tristan Thompson, sometimes Daniel Tice is playing the center spot if he's not power forward, or the upcoming Robert Williams, the third. But obviously, you're going to have to give up something, and he might be the one to go. But the Celtics do have a lot of picks in their hand, and Danny Ainge is definitely capable of pulling something off as far as making something a big trade, definitely in their advantage to help strengthen the team wherever they see best fit. And again, just trying to keep that core of Tatum, Walker, Jalen Brown, and Marcus Smart as the veteran leader from a mental standpoint and a floor general. But Byron, what do you think as far as some of the other teams in the East, or do you have something similar thought-wise as far as teams that should be performing better?
Honestly, with the players that Cleveland has, they're really underachieving. With the acquisition of Drummond, with adding to what they had, I would expect them to be closer to the middle of this pack. But they've really underperformed, and I'm puzzled. What is Orlando doing? What is going on over there? Well, I mean, down there in Florida, just doesn't make any sense why they're not competing at all. Like they're in the next to last spot at this point. Um, these teams are just, it baffles me. Like you can't. The Indiana Pacers are like your middle ground, and they're not even close. So
Yeah, the Pacers, along with the Hawks, are one of the teams. A few of the teams that I was had on my list as far as teams that should be performing better so far. The Pacers seemed like they were starting off pretty high earlier in the season. Brogdon was performing at an excellent rate, and Miles Turner seemed like he turned things around compared to the last few seasons. But now it seems like he's kind of gone back to the old Miles Turner that we know leading up to the All-Star break. And yeah, I feel like they should have moved up or already be moved up. And we look at Charlotte. I think where did you have them, Hugh? Maybe I think they're number 6 or number 7 in the East. 7.
7.
I could possibly see things turn around for either the Hawks or Pacers where they could have that spot, and Charlotte would be the play-in team out of the East. But definitely a close race and something to keep an eye on. But for me, the biggest disappointment as far as performers who should be doing better, the Washington Wizards. I just thought the Wizards, with the acquisition of Russell Westbrook in place of John Wall, who had been injured for the last season and a half, would have been able to bring some more energy to the team and get the guys motivated. Yeah, they're still dealing with some younger talent pieces that are still growing, but Russ is definitely one of those guys that he's exciting to watch and probably exciting to play with. Maybe not down the stretch when he's clanking shots off the front of the rim, taking unnecessary threes. But with Bradley Beal there, I think Hugh had mentioned before, leading scorer in the NBA currently. I just expected more from them. This looks like on paper, record-wise, as if it was still the last season and a half for the Wizards where John Wall isn't healthy and Bradley Beal is trying to carry. So I wasn't expecting a rerun. Hopefully they can turn things around. I don't think necessarily a trade has to be involved here for the time being, but just need to pick up the slack and get your team going. They did have some few players that missed some time due to COVID, which is always an underlying factor for any team. But I feel like they need to get something clicking here and make a push for them to, I guess at this time, be a play-in team in the Eastern Conference by the time playoffs roll around. But summing up from the Wizards, I like to ask y'all: are there teams that you feel like you have little to no hope for the Eastern Conference? And this could be debatable. I guess I can take the floor here, and I would say even though I just talked about the Wizards should be performing better, at the same time, there's something in the back of my mind that tells me this team has little hope. Like I said, I think they just have to play better. I don't think it's something that they have to make a trade to improve their team. But if they continue with what they've got, there's little hope there that you're going to make a big impact leading into the playoffs. But I am trying to look on the positive side at that. Another team obviously would be the Detroit Pistons. They're just sitting at the bottom. There's no hope there for me. I'm sure y'all would agree. Feel free to plug anything in that y'all want to mention about the Detroit Pistons. But to be honest, I think looking at it now, we can kind of see obviously what they're trying to do from a management standpoint. And I think that is, they're just in rebuild mode. They tried to bring in Jeremy Grant for the purpose of giving him an expanded role and kind of using him as a piece to help build the team and not necessarily be the central focal point all the time. But they do have some other players and some rookies that definitely are deserving of getting some stretch runs here in the second half, especially since they're not really trying to compete for a playoff spot, and just see what they have on court and what meshes and what lineups that they can put together on the floor, and see who should stay around or get traded in the offseason leading up to next season. So, definitely somebody that they're going to keep underperforming from a winning standpoint, but we should, I guess, in a sense, trust the process of Detroit and see what comes about as a result of this season. Would y'all agree?
Yeah, absolutely. The two teams that came to mind when you first asked that question was the two teams you talked about, Washington and Detroit. Washington, like you said, I mean, everybody needs to pick up the slack. You can't really expect more from Bradley Beal. I mean, he's already doing everything for that team. He's leading the league in scoring, like we've said. I mean, you can't really expect much more from him. Y'all know from us talking, before, I'm not a big Russell Westbrook fan, so I don't really have too much good things to say about him. But yeah, I just think that I see him. They should be better. I agree with that, but like you said, I don't see him really gaining any ground. And then Detroit, yeah, just put a rebuild mode. Then I saw, reports that maybe Plumlee is going to get traded and a couple other guys going to get traded for him. So yeah, I just see him hanging out in the bottom down there the rest of the second half.
B, you got any follow up to that? Anything you'd like to chip in?
So I was very disappointed in how Washington specifically has performed, with them having John Wall being inconsistent. They traded for Westbrook's consistency, and there were a lot of games he had almost as many turnovers as assists in the first half of the game. It's like they can't even keep control of the ball. The play looks sloppy. The game that I did watch with them, there was no chemistry there, and I feel like you do. Like, if this team stays the way it is, they're basically staying where they are, no matter what talent they have on the floor, and they have plenty of it. I just don't think that this particular grouping just works together with the skill sets they have. And I do believe that Detroit is just kind of throwing out their young guys and seeing what they got, and then hoping for next year or the year after. I'd say they're at least 2 years away from doing really anything. They don't have a dominant player at this point, and that's what you need. You need that go-to guy if you're going to make a push, and I don't see it on this roster for Detroit. And honestly, I don't think, even if you get a big-time draft pick, they're going to take at least a year or two to be that guy, even if they have that potential. I think they need to look at getting some decent veterans in there over the next year or so to start building up this young talent and finding some sort of synergy. But I have a lot more hope for Detroit right now than I have for Washington, to be honest with you, because Detroit looks like they have some sort of plan. I don't know what Washington's doing.
Wow, yeah, that's an interesting take on that. And I just want to follow up with a question for y'all. As far as the Wizards go, are they on the clock? Are they feeling the pressure right now? And in regards to Bradley Beal or their developing talent, or the situation where they just traded for Russell Westbrook this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think they should be on the clock. Like y'all talked about, John Wall missed all that time, being hurt, and they were like, enough's enough. We need to make a change and go get Russell Westbrook. And what's changed? Not much. If anything, they've gone downhill a little bit. I mean, just you do all that, bring him in, like Byron said, for his consistency, and it just hasn't worked out. I'm sure Bradley Beal. Well, I know he's made statements about being frustrated. I'd be frustrated. And you're putting up 40, 45 points a game just to lose back to back to back to back to back. I mean, yeah, and they should be feeling the heat.
B.
I think honestly, the problem is the management of the team. I don't think they've put the right pieces together, and they haven't consistently for a while. And they've had plenty of talent come through. Like I say, with John Wall, not keeping him healthy and not giving him those options. And then Beal also had injury struggles early. And now these guys are past their prime. You go with Russell Westbrook to get something different, and it's more of the same. And these guys are not staying in their prime for very long, and players are apt to leave if things aren't going their way. Them as an organization, they kind of need to look at, I think, the upper management and the coaching staffs and things to start working on building a team instead of just accumulating talent. It kind of reminds me of how the Pistons were probably about 3 or 4 years ago, where they were just throwing a bunch of talented players out on the floor and hoping for the best.
That's what it sounds like. I would also compare them to maybe the Phoenix Suns of the last several years prior to this year, where just the talent that comes in, people that they've drafted. I guess not a lot of big trades as far as bringing a talented player in, such as a player like Russell Westbrook. But, Devin Booker was kind of looking like almost a situation with Bradley Beal the last several years, where you're a major talent, you have major upside, and somebody definitely could utilize you more than what you're doing for your current team as far as a winning standpoint. And it's just a shame of the downfall of the Washington Wizards over the last several years, of how they just seem to be almost a perennial playoff team. And now it's just gone downhill. But on a higher note, let's talk about the powerhouses of the Eastern Conference. And I think the powerhouses right now, like you said, the Celtics aren't really performing where we thought they should be performing. So let's look at the top three. Go ahead and rename those three, Hugh.
Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee.
Okay, let's go with the Bucks first. But you got any comments? Anything specific about the Bucks?
I think the Bucks have everything they really need to be that top 2 team. Giannis continues to just awe me. Like, that guy is continuing to grow his game. He's getting more range. His 3-point shot's not as consistent as you would like, but I say that, and he went 3 for 3 in the All-Star game. Of course, the defense isn't that great there, but that still says something, that he still took the threes and he made them when they gave them to him.
It's better than not taking them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was, a year or 2 ago, he wouldn't even take that shot, which I like his confidence growing. He's continuing to improve his ball handling. His drive to the lane, his 2 steps are so long. He's at the top of the key to the rim in 2 steps. It's crazy. The guy's got talent rolling everywhere. They put some really good players around him. Not a lot of big names, but I think an underrated player in that system is Drew Holiday. He's thrived in that system in a way that he hasn't since the early days in Philadelphia. I think he's really created that synergy with Giannis, and it's really brought out the best in him. And that team is bound to do good things. But I do wonder how they're going to match up with Brooklyn and Philadelphia going forward. I wonder in a game, 5 to 7, the longevity of how they're going to hold up against those matchups against some really powerhouse talent.
That's something we're going to have to, talk about and discuss as the season progresses. But definitely a big shout out to Drew Holiday. I definitely agree. I had him start in my notes as the major factors, what I listed him as for the Bucks. A big upgrade over Eric Bledsoe as far as what he's contributing to the team. And he does have some synergy going with Giannis, and just a player that's able to pick it up on defense and offense. So you get the two-way player there that is possibly the missing link. But as far as them matching up with the other teams, I mean, this might be another team as well where I don't think a big trade is necessary. You just did a big trade on the offseason, so it might be just more synergy, more involvement, and more, know your personnel type of team where Coach Mike Budenholzer or Hauser can get out there and just utilize those bench players a little bit more. I think we see Pat Connaughton doing a little bit more in the game as far as his involvement with the offense, because he's been known as, I guess, kind of like a 3-and-D type of player. So to put him in game situations over the last couple of weeks leading up to the All-Star break, he's another guy that, can potentially have a huge impact down the stretch or even in the playoffs. And then, of course, you got Dante DiVincenzo, and he's just another guy that can help fill in as far as the scoring, but not necessarily being relied upon heavily with Drew Holiday there. Hugh, what are your thoughts about the Bucks as far as where they stand with their roster and if they can keep staying in the top 3 in the East? I mean, they've been number 1 the last couple seasons since LeBron has left the conference.
Yeah, I actually agree with what pretty much what both y'all are saying. Me personally, I see the Bucks as the second half of the season playing out. I see them holding that 3rd spot. I actually see them finishing the regular season with that 3rd spot. Like y'all said, Giannis is just continuing his stellar play. He's not perfected his 3-pointer by any means, but he's actually taking them now. So like your bud said, that's progress. Chris Middleton, he's having an amazing year. A lot of people think that he should have made the All-Star game, which he had, a very good case for it. So, to be mentioned that way, you obviously have to be having a great season, which he is. And yeah, just Drew Holiday. I think, like you touched on, D, he's a big upgrade from Eric Bledsoe. I was never too big on Eric Bledsoe. But yeah, with Drew Holiday, he's such an elite defender, and he just seems to be thriving in that system, like y'all said. And I like Milwaukee. Like B touched on, I don't know how they would match up in a 7-game series with Philadelphia and Brooklyn, but I see them hanging on to that 3rd spot.
I think we could probably all agree here, unanimously as far as the Bucks being in that 3rd seed position. And the other 2 teams, the top 2, the Sixers and the Nets, I want to do this a little bit different. I want this to be kind of like a battle, almost like the Kevin Durant, LeBron James All-Star draft that we did. Y'all can take either side, but you don't have to stay on one side. So let's just pretend in a scenario that this, not trying to fast forward too far, but this is the matchup that we're waiting for as far as who's making it out of the East. So I think both of these teams are contending against each other. So let's just wipe out the field. Let's just assume they can beat anybody else in the field right now with what they got and possibly what they might have coming in if you're the Nets or the Sixers making a smaller trade. Who do you see in matchup wise? Like there's rumors about Drummond, if he is possibly bought out by the Cleveland Cavaliers, that not only are the Lakers interested, but obviously the Nets, which might be a destination he might choose to go if that scenario works out, or if the Nets had some way of trading for him. How do y'all see a potential Drummond fit, and how would that position themselves against a team like the Sixers with Joel Embiid as their big guy? B, I know you're a huge Philly fan. Maybe not of some of the players that they have at the moment, but what are your thoughts of taking the Sixers versus the Nets?
So I will say, that I think Philly is the best built team in the East at this point. I do see Ben Simmons finally attempting those outer shots that have bit them in the playoffs year after year after year. Being a Philly fan, I always made the joke, I'm going to get the Philadelphia 76ers to put me in my grave saying, let me down one more time. They just always are right on the cusp and have one thing that holds them back. They draft really risky, drafting Joel Embiid after the injury, and drafting Fultz knowing he was a potential injury problem. Nerlens Noel as well. Of course, they've parted ways with two of the three of those guys now. Simmons is being Simmons. He's consistently putting up numbers, all-star caliber numbers. The guy's a talent. You can't deny it. But I always worry every year because when you get in the playoffs, whatever weakness you have, those teams are playing at a high level and they're going to make you lean on your weakness. And that weakness right now, to me, is still Ben Simmons' exterior shooting, which I think Brooklyn has in spades. Their shooting is outrageous.
What do you, just to interject, what do you think about the additions that the Sixers did try to make to compensate that by bringing in Danny Green and Seth Curry, who is very known for his high percentage rate as far as three-pointers made versus three-pointers attempted?
I definitely think it's helped them. Obviously, the record's showing the additional three-point shooting has made them more versatile and less predictable, which has taken the pressure off of Embiid a lot. And Embiid has flourished in this new setup. I think he's had one of the best years that I've seen him have, and he's had some amazing years there in Philly when he's been healthy. And this is the healthiest season he's had. So I do think it sets him up better, which the thing about it is that against a team like Brooklyn, I think the Sixers definitely have the depth chart. They have a lot more options on their bench because of Brooklyn going top heavy. And I honestly think Philadelphia comes out of the East in a 7-game series. I'm actually more worried about what the Knicks have than I'm worried about what the Nets have. And that's a weird statement to make considering the starting lineup, especially with the addition of Drummond, that Brooklyn's going to have. I think New York has that offense that wins right now with a lot of shooters and a couple of good rebounders and good defenders. But I think Philly is the best all-around team in the East, and I don't think it's as close as people think, even though the records are only half a game apart.
It sounds like you're making a bold statement there, and I like bold statements, and I would have to agree with you. Maybe the only person that I've heard lately among us that have actually, come right out and say it with their own honest opinion as far as the Sixers being the team that can power out of the East. Not saying it's going to be easy. Obviously, playing the Nets and some of the other teams is definitely going to be a challenge, but it is a 7-game series. And like I said before, when you throw in the coaching ability of Doc Rivers, who is a championship caliber coach and knows how to coach big names, that's definitely going to be an advantage there versus the other side with the Nets and what they had going on earlier in the offseason when they had mentioned, well, not they, but Kevin Durant followed up on Kyrie Irving's statement of they're not needing a coach this year. That might come back and bite them. Hugh, what are you thinking as far as the Nets? Are you picking the Nets in the battle? I mean, I know you're not a big James Harden fan, but what do you think as far as what they have going? And if they still need that one more piece, obviously, if they can get Drummond would be a huge freebie in a way if they're not really making trade for him and getting him on the buyout market. But just adding Blake Griffin, how do you see him fitting with this team? And does he make a large impact? Is he the piece that helps fill in the gaps as far as not having all that depth of players like they did before they made the trade to Cleveland?
Yeah, those are good points. I will go ahead and say that right now, if you look at the rosters this second, I would probably have to pick Philadelphia to come out of the East. I will say though that if Brooklyn can get their hands on Andre Drummond, then they would be my favorite.
Is it over?
I love what. Is it over?
Yeah, if they get Drummond, is it staked in the ground that the East is the Nets?
I mean, the Sixers aren't going to let it go easy, but I think like I said, right now, I would give it to Philly. But if they could get their hands on Drummond, if they get Drummond over there to Brooklyn, I think that'll do it. That's starting five. I mean, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, and Andre Drummond or DeAndre Jordan, or however they decide to do that. But I just mean, that's just that lineup is stacked in my opinion. It reminds me a lot of the Warriors when they were winning all those championships. But
now with the Warriors, they proved that they could also win without Durant. They had one and then they added a piece. But with this team, this is all new chemistry. We're talking about a personality of Kyrie Irving playing with, not one superstar, but a secondary superstar, and possibly the argument that both of these superstars are better than him. So, somebody who had problems playing with the star power of LeBron James and living in his shadow, mentally, is this big three along with a Blake Griffin, maybe potential Drummond as well, are these personalities going to fit? Like, could that be a factor that causes them to unravel during the stretch or the playoffs?
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. I'll say as of right now, I think it's all mashed together. I saw Blake Griffin. He made some comments today about going to Brooklyn and stuff like that. He said he just wanted to win a championship. And so with that statement, he didn't want to say, I want to go and put up 20 points a game. He didn't say anything like that. So he needs, in my opinion, it sounds like he knows his role. He knows he's not going to be a primary option. He knows he has the option to score, and he's a great passer. And I think that's probably what they'll rely on him most for. Take a shot if your shot's open. If not, give it to one of your superstars. But yeah, Brooklyn, they're intriguing to me. They really are. We've seen teams where they've had multiple superstars and it's not worked, and then we've had it where it's worked perfectly. So I do think it's too early to tell. All three, even Kyrie, Harden, and Durant, they haven't been on the floor that much together with the three of them. But I mean, we saw with Durant out, Kyrie and Harden, it's obvious that they're already built chemistry. They were playing outstanding together, and you throw in Durant, I don't really see that messing up. Like you said, with Griffin coming in, hopefully that doesn't affect things much. I think, like I said, Blake Griffin kind of knows his role, knows he's not going to be, a primary option there. He's just kind of not a role player because he's better than a role player, but I don't think he'll look for his own shot that often. That's probably he's used to doing in his career before, but that might be a good thing for him. He's been declining as of late, and maybe he needs a new change of scenery or something like that. But yeah, I do like I reiterated. I'll reiterate what I was saying earlier. Like, I do think that Philly wins right now. I don't like the DeAndre Jordan and Embiid. I think Embiid would just have a field day. But if they bring in Drummond, who in my opinion is a better scoring option, looks for his own shot a little more, and also can fight on the boards. I like that. If they get Drummond, I think they're my favorite in the East.
Now, don't forget, about Embiid's footwork. You talk about the matchup. Obviously, what Drummond could bring would be a greater outcome, most likely than DeAndre Jordan. But Embiid's footwork, Drummond, he plays that old school type of big man game. So he's either going to be flat footed or he's jumping for everything. Embiid's smart
Hey,
player.
one
He
one
might be able
thing
to foul him out.
one thing I forgot to mention. One thing that worries me about Brooklyn is their depth. Their depth. Like you said, Philly has, Seth Curry. They have some good bench guys. Brooklyn, when they did the trade for Harden, they lost Torrin Prince, they lost Jared Allen, they lost some good good bench players. Now, one thing I will say, I'm assuming now Blake Griffin will start, and that'll move KD to the 3, which will put Joe Harris on the bench. Coming off the bench, it's like the 6th man. I am, shout out UVA again. I'm huge on Joe Harris. He's leading the league currently in 3-point percentage. He's a great shooter, but besides him, that bench does worry me a little bit in a 7-game series. But
So tell me if y'all agree, but from what we just talked about between these two teams, I see the same goal in mind, but two different ways of getting there for both of these teams. The Sixers sound like currently all they need to do is put in the reps and continue to build what they already have with team chemistry and just execute. And the Nets, it sounds like we're all agreeing that they still have a lot to prove in the regular season. One, from a floor standpoint of getting these the big 3 on the floor together more often so they can be involved in in-game situations, as well as incorporating Blake Griffin. And then if you talk about Drummond coming to the Nets anytime between now and the possibility of a March 25th deadline for the trade deadline, then you have to incorporate him in and work him into your system. So you're talking about guys who are starting caliber players on their respective teams or had been in other situations. And then also the fact that they have been, I guess, previous all-stars. So somebody needs to play the role of the filler, and somebody has to be their PJ Tucker. You know what I mean? You don't have everybody out there to get theirs individually, and you don't have everybody out there just looking to pass it to one guy. You have to be versatile enough to know your role as far as like when you need to do what you do and specialize in that for the game, or when you do need to back off. Like I said, you need that PJ Tucker type of player. And when you don't have as much depth, unless you bring in PJ Tucker himself, who might be bought out, but when you don't have that depth, it's almost like some of those players that are starters are required to play a double role, in my opinion. Like I said, you talk about the pairing of Harden and Durant, Kyrie and Harden. That's 2 at a time. When all 3 of them are on the floor, somebody's got to give a little bit. And yeah, Harden, I think, is a good fit at putting him at the point guard position where he can make plays without shooting. And then if he needs to shoot down the stretch, he can. But there's going to be times where I'm sure they're going to rely more heavily on Harden to do things, and Durant, and then Kyrie's left as the filler guy. Or if they're pressuring, Harden in a double team or Durant in a double team, then maybe Kyrie has to step it up. But then, teams are going to figure out a way. And maybe this is part of Brooklyn's strategy. Don't show them a lot on the court as a big 3, so other players and staffing can't figure out, okay, how does this scheme work? But like B said, once teams get in the playoffs, it doesn't take sometimes but 1 game or 2 in a 7-game series where a great coach will figure something out and adjust their game plan, which forces the other team to adjust their game plan. And then when the other team does not have multiple game plans intact, that's when they lose games. That's because they can't rely on something different, because there is no different. There's only the starting 5 potentially with what we have here and a Joe Harris. So it's interesting to see what all the Nets need to do. But to me, it sounds like a lot of work. It just sounds like they have a longer stride to get the result that they're wanting than the Sixers. We all agree?
Yeah. I will say one thing. If you bring Drummond into Brooklyn, your bigs are free throw liabilities, putting it lightly.
Free throw and foul liabilities as far as fouling out in games.
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing. I mean, both of those guys are on the backside of their career, so they're losing steps to these guys that they're going to be matching up with, like Embiid, like Simmons, who are going to get them into positions where they're going to have to foul, or they're going to get fouled, and neither of those guys are very good free throw shooters. Blake Griffin is the best of the three, and he's underperformed so far this season. And I don't see, with the coach of the Brooklyn Nets, how's he going to manage those egos? I mean, you're not talking that they have Phil Jackson or Doc Rivers sitting over there managing these egos. They said they don't need a coach, which says to me that the coach that's there is probably not fully invested anyway. You're not looking at a guy who's got experience taking care of making sure these guys feel valued and feel like they're contributing. So these guys could decide to go any direction. And I'm not sure that that's a harmonic route, or it could be a pure chaotic and volatile route. It could explode on itself. And that would be my concern, especially if I was a Nets fan right now. Like, you've got foulers and foul shooting liabilities and egos that have shown that they can blow up in better circumstances than they're in now.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, you hit on some big pointers there when you're talking about the players, and then you talk about the coach. We're talking about Steve Nash here, who is the first-time coach with the only experience he has is being, one of the coaches on the staff for Steve Kerr and the Warriors. So he's seen, what it takes to get to those championship runs, but to coach is a different setting. And then to coach these group of guys, we're not talking about the Warriors as far as that team chemistry of, we know how we play the game. We know how to feed it off each other when, somebody's hot and somebody's not. And you have Draymond Green, who knows, hey, I'm the heart and soul of the team, but I'm not the star of the team when I'm on the floor as far as what I provide for the team. So they all know and fit their roles perfectly. You're managing, like you said, you're managing these guys who are basically, in a sense, loose cannons when it comes to their attitude of the game, or even their attitude of the press when, touchy subjects are mentioned, or they get asked questions that any normal superstar caliber player would be asked, and how they're going to go about handling that, or if they're going to shut down, or like you said, are they going to implode on each other? Hugh, how would you compare this Nets team to what you've seen in the past with your Warriors teams? I mean, clearly you think this is definitely a different atmosphere as far as player chemistry and team chemistry, and also from the coaching standpoint as far as the pressure of Steve Nash.
Yeah, I never really think that the Warriors had to go through too much of that chemistry issue. Steph and Clay and Draymond and those guys, they were, they already had, great chemistry. They had already been playing together for a little bit. I know when they brought in Kevin Durant, I think Kevin Durant, mashed in well with him. Kevin Durant, he's not a extremely outspoken guy. He's not a guy that loves the media attention and that kind of stuff. So I don't really think that the Warriors had too much of that to deal with that. I do agree with what B said. I do see, that I could see circumstances where, players are, mad they're not getting enough touches. When you have all those kind of all-stars on the team, because Harden, is outspoken at times. Kyrie's definitely outspoken at times. I could see a situation where maybe one or multiple of those guys are unhappy for whatever reason, and the chemistry starts to lack a little bit on the floor. I could see something like that. I don't think it's happened yet, and like I said, it hasn't happened yet. The Warriors, in my opinion, they never really had to deal with too much of that. I think Clay, everybody knew Clay was, amazing, but he was like always behind Curry. And I mean, and everyone knew that, Clay himself. And, like you said about Draymond, he was the heart and soul of the team, but not, the star on the floor. And it's those guys just knew their role. And I think, Brooklyn kind of mirrors that. I don't know if it'll be as easy with them just because Kyrie and Harden have had instances before where they've expressed displeasure with the current circumstances they were in. But I think if they just kind of fall in line there, I believe they'll be okay.
Good. You've heard it here first from Hugh, a big Warriors fan. Giving us a great breakdown and summary of, the comparison between the two and, a projection of what we might see develop with the Brooklyn Nets or not. For the final question of the night, I guess it's kind of like a 2-for-1, just to show love for the Miami Heat fans and the New York Knicks fans. Where do y'all see them projected as far as, give me a number for the seeding of them at the end of the regular season? I think where are the Knicks 6th and the Heat are 5th currently? Is that correct?
No. Knicks are 5th, Heat is 6th.
Okay. So quickly, I'll start with you, Hugh. Give me the two numbers. Where are the Heat at the end of the regular season, and where are the Knicks at the end of regular season? These are bold predictions, so don't have to be super accurate here.
Okay, I like what the Knicks are doing. The Celtics, like I said, they're underperforming, but they're still at 4. I think they're going to make maybe not a huge trade, but a trade before the deadline, and I see them staying in the 4th spot. So the Knicks, I don't think I see anybody that's going to come up and pass them. Maybe Charlotte, but as of right now, I think I might keep the Knicks at 5. To be honest with
So
you.
the Knicks at 5.
Miami.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Miami. I'm gonna go bold here. I'm gonna go really bold. I'm gonna knock Miami. Miami's not will be in the playoffs. They might be in a play-in team, but I do not see Miami in the playoffs.
Wow, I like that. I wasn't
Like
expecting
we
that.
talked about, Atlanta. I see Atlanta improving. I see Indiana improving. I see Charlotte probably just getting better in my opinion. I see Toronto, if anything, getting better in my opinion. And the Heat, I don't want to say I think they'll get worse, but I think a lot of teams will just be getting better.
That's interesting. So basically, if the Heat aren't making any moves, then they're essentially dropping.
My opinion, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bold statement because, maybe the reverse could happen if Jimmy Butler and or Bam are motivated by the All-Star snubs this year. It's going to be interesting to see. I like that. It's an honest opinion. B, you have any predictions for these two teams in particular, the Knicks and the Miami Heat, where they're going to end up in the regular season?
I said before, I think the Knicks have a lot of talent. They're built well. They're built to win in today's league. I really like what Barrett's done to improve his output this year. He struggled his first year, and they've really worked on getting his confidence going. His shooting's improved. I look for the Knicks to stay in the 5 spot. I don't know that they have enough to overtake Boston. Depending on what happens with Tatum, he's still dealing with the COVID stuff. If he doesn't overcome the COVID thing, I can actually see the Knicks overtaking Boston long term and potentially stealing that 4 spot. But like I say, that's going to depend on Tatum's health, I think, more than anything. Not so much that the Knicks are improving, but that Boston needs Tatum to keep performing at a high level in order to stay where they are. And right now, he's admitted that the COVID after effects have really affected his game, from his shooting to his long-term stamina in the game. And so I think if if Tatum gets back to 100%, they stay in the 4 spot. If not, I say the Knicks take that spot long term. Miami, I haven't seen that fire in Butler this year, to be fair. He was really out to prove himself. They made it really far last year and just came up a little bit short, and they've really underperformed more than I was hoping. They're still up there, but I look for Charlotte to continue to improve and potentially pass them. I still think they're a playoff team. I don't know what's going on in Toronto, but I don't look for that to get any better either. But I think Atlanta probably continues to climb. I'm not sure about Indiana. They're just mad to me. Their team is exactly what it says, whatever their statistics are. And we touched on this before the recording, that what you see with Indiana is what you get. And I think that's a middle of the road, just out of the playoff team. I don't know what Chicago is. I don't know that they can improve enough to stay where they are. I say they drop at best. But yeah, I believe in Atlanta. I think they're going to continue to get better as their guys get healthy. And but I look for Miami to be a 7 or an 8 seed this year. We might see them pick it up in the playoffs, but I look for New York to go to potentially the 4 spot, and Miami probably to like a 7 or an 8.
Okay, I guess, well, for me, I'm looking at it maybe in a slightly different perspective as far as the potential and hope for the teams like the Miami Heat. I feel like, I guess I could start with the Knicks, because I feel like the Knicks, they're sitting at number 5 right now, and I will agree that I think they stay where they're at. As far as, I think, Hugh, you had mentioned that they stay stagnant, and B, you said they'd move up 1. I feel like they could hold on to where they're at. I mean, it's a tight race right now. I'm looking at my screen behind my phone here, and yeah, that's just where I'm going to keep them, because I feel like that's a comfortable place for them to keep grinding out wins, but not really make too big of a scene as far as being pressured into becoming one of the top 4 seeds for home court. And now, as far as Miami, I'm going to boost them up. I feel like just the motivation of Bam and Butler, they've already got the team chemistry. We've seen it happen. And just because of what happened last year, I'm going with the bubble trend as far as them making as far as they did in the playoffs, reaching the Eastern Conference Finals and winning that, and then making it to the NBA Finals unexpectedly. I feel like I can't sleep on them again after they proved that they can do that. I feel like this second half is a mini playoff push or a mini playoff series for them with each individual game. You have a healthy Jimmy Butler now, and if Bam keeps bringing his game up to par as far as where he was at the end of last season, if not make it better. I mean, because we also have to consider what they just experienced. They're no different than the Lakers as far as how many games they went through last year. So you have to consider that they started off the season not rested. There should have been some form of fatigue amongst their players. And this small break, like I said, especially with Bam and Jimmy not having to play in the All-Star game, but as well as them not making the All-Star game, it's definitely some motivation there, being Eastern Conference defending champs. So I feel like I just definitely can't sleep on them, and I'm going to give them the number 4 seed, and maybe right on the heels of the Bucks for the number 3 seed. But I want to say 4 feels comfortable for me to put them there. Just like I said, just a team that's going to be under the radar because they're not going to be talked about a lot with everything going on with the Brooklyn Nets and Philly being up top like that, and then obviously the Bucks having the 2-time reigning MVP. So I think Miami Heat, it's time to make a move as far as climbing up the standings, whether or not you bring in another player. So
can I ask you something? To follow up with that. If you have the Heat going to the 4th spot, where do you have the Celtics going?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you for filling me in on that. I just got the Celtics bumping down to where the Heat currently are, which is number 6. I definitely agree with what B had mentioned there with Tatum. I think he's just still struggling with the side effects of COVID, and we don't know how long-term those side effects are for certain people. I mean, he mentioned himself that his breathing hasn't been the same. So you see his percentages, they're not where they should be, because this is a player that I saw coming into this season as an improvement from last season. This is the guy that could potentially be the next iteration of a Kobe Bryant, where his game just increases that much dramatically, and he adds more to his offensive game, and he already plays a lockdown defense as far as his steal rating. And I just saw him progressing, but with this setback, you know, it's tough, going to be tough to come back for. Like COVID is like legitimately for some players like an injury as far as the recovery, because you don't know exactly how you're going to recover, and you don't know exactly how long this is going to be, and your training staff can't really predetermine your outcome. So, you know, not trying to be negative with it, I wish him the best, but he mentioned himself his own conditioning is not the same. So it almost seems like it's no different than a player coming into training camp out of shape, like extremely out of shape, and trying to perform at a level that they're used to performing. So he's got to definitely get more reps in, but they also have to monitor his health and what he can handle as far as a load if it comes to his lung capacity, as far as how long he can stay in these games down the stretch, or if they need to scale back a little bit, which leaves room for a person like Jaylen Brown to step up, and Kemba Walker. And obviously they're definitely missing Marcus Smart, but he is coming off injury. So now you have to restart with him and get him healthy enough to where he's acclimated to X amount of minutes, but not push him too much, because he's definitely a guy you want in the playoffs down the stretch that could, you know, definitely swing the game for you as far as momentum, or just, you know, playing that hard nosed defense in the fourth quarter for you. But yeah, I definitely have hopes for Boston. You know, shout out to all your Boston fans tonight, but I just think that they just need a little bit more time for health, and that some of the other teams are just going to look to pull away, you know, outside of them, hopefully not, you know, contracting COVID as well. But like I said, the Knicks are kind of in a sweet spot where there's not too much pressure on them, but Julius Randle, he's just performing at a high level. And they got some younger guys like you mentioned yesterday, Hugh Quickly, that can easily, you know, break out for the second half because he's motivated and wants to play in time. And then you got a floor leader and vocal leader and Derrick Rose, and an experienced coach and Tom Thibodeau. And then, like I said, just Miami Heat, just giving them props to winning the Eastern Conference last year. I just can't sleep on them. I hope I answered your question.
Fair enough. Yeah, you did. I was just curious where you had them going.
No, thank you. We're gonna wrap this up. Any last words, Hugh? I'm gonna start with you. What do you want to tell the
I
listeners?
don't
Just
have
give
too
them a
much
shout
to
out.
say. What I want to tell the listeners, shout out.
Say anything,
I don't even know.
anybody.
I don't know. You putting me on the spot right now.
It's all right. Just shout out one of our subscribers. Do you know who subscribed recently?
Yeah, shout out Coops Troops.
Yeah, big shout out to Coop. You know, he recently found our channel and he subscribed, and you know, he wants to
Even commented on some videos.
Yeah, he wants to talk about Larry Bird. So I'm rocking the Celtics again tonight, but we might not get onto that during this channel. I would encourage you to visit our sister channel, The Tavern Geek, where we do explore at times legendary players and sometimes compare them to present players. So Jim, hopefully we'll have a video / podcast coming soon for you, specifically for that, as far as part of the segment during that podcast. And B, you want to give a shout out as to where they can find you. We are grateful that you were able to come on for us tonight and spend some time with us. I know you are an extremely busy gamer during multiple days of the week, as far as gaming in the nights and gaming in the mornings. I know you have a Twitch channel. You want to go ahead and give out your info?
So I will be going live tomorrow morning, Eastern, I don't know when this video will post, to be 8:30 a.m. Every Wednesday Eastern time for some competitive Overwatch grinding. I do some competitive gaming. I also stream nights. Wednesday's my only daytime stream, but Thursday and Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, I would do 11:30 at night for about 2 or 3 hours of variety games. And I'm glad I could come on here. I have a passion for basketball and baseball. I love the sports. I don't get to spend as much time enjoying them as I would like, but having time like this really helps out to scratch that itch. Yeah, come check me out on Twitch on YourBud36. Watch me be bad at video games. That's what I do. So, and definitely, if y'all haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you do it. These guys are great. Dee, especially, thank you for being an amazing host, and thank you for the invitation to come out and be a part of this. It's been a really great time.
Oh, of course, anytime, man. We're definitely appreciative of having you on here, and hopefully we get to have you on here again. And you know, in the upcoming future, what day is it that you're having the Overwatch Pug games? Because you can also catch me there playing bad as well, being bad at video games.
We're going to do that St. Patrick's Day weekend, the weekend after St. Patrick's Day. We're actually going to start early, Saturday, March 20th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Maybe we can even drag Hugh into those games. Occasionally we get him to throw with us as well. And it's going to be a good time, a lot of fun. A lot of good people showing up, and like I say, come see Purple Hulk's amazing Ryan skills, potentially his Moira orb bounces. He got the bounces like he got the basketball dribbles, man. They're going off in angles you wouldn't expect, and it's big time plays.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back into that and synergize with you, and you know, definitely do our thing together. It's definitely always great playing with a great friend. So, and Hugh, you will probably be on that Twitch hopefully that night if you're not in the game.
Oh yeah, I'm a mod. I'm gonna be there.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah, you catch all of us in some way or form for that event. I can't wait for it. Again, thanks B for being on the show. Thanks again, Hugh, for co-hosting with us. And shout out again to Cuz Fred. He wasn't here again tonight. We're hoping to have him on in the future. And some more special guests, hopefully. But definitely we want to have you again, B, for another podcast when you get the chance to come back around. And yeah, I want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed or will subscribe, and everybody who's listening. You can catch us here on our YouTube channel, or you can catch us if you want to listen to the podcast only on anchor.fm under KISH YZ, KISHYZ, among some other podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casters, just to name a few. And hopefully you can join us tomorrow for our next segment of podcast slash video, where we will be doing the West and their second half predictions. Yeah, thank you all for coming out. I love you guys. Everybody say peace.
Yeah.
Peace.
Y'all have a good night.
Peace and love.